Namaste. Okay, chakra deep dive. So there's a lot to say about chakras, and I want to, on one hand, make it as deep as possible, but on the other hand, want to also compress it. Otherwise, we could probably speak many hours about it. There's a book which I like, the complete book of chakras, and as you can see, it has about 1,000 pages, and that's not all you can say about chakras. So it has a lot, and this shall be rather a nice, concise overview and a little bit of deep dive how to also apply them and how to practice them and if they are the right practice for you, because they are a map, a practice for another goal. We don't do chakra work just for the sake of it. I mean, you can, but you can also do much more with it. And to get to know if that's the right practice for you and for your moment and this situation and this life, you should know a little bit about the foundation and why, the why behind the chakras. And before we dive into the chakras themselves, I want to lay down the foundation that will be maybe a little bit theoretical, but it's great to understand like the origin. So for that reason, I will share a few times my screen. And I want to start with the actual rough world view of Tantra Yoga, because it is important to understand that in order to know what the chakras are actually there for, because they have a lot to do with the creation of this reality. And let me see, I shared this one. If you can see that, that's a picture of a book which is called Tantra Illuminated from my teacher. And what you here see is roughly the whole process of creation, top down, let's say. So let's go to the very bottom, right? It says Mahabhutas, that's the gross elements. And we would call it in modern language matter. And then we maybe call it atoms or protons and neutrinos and so on, electrons. In science language, but the yogis, they just simplified that and said there are 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, wind, and space. And in our today's world, the dogma of science, they would say that is the origin. Our particles, that's the foundation and the origin of what we are and where this world is created from. And as you see here, that's the very last bit of the yogic worldview. And it starts at the very top with the heart, Shiva Shakti in perfect fusion. So Shiva Shakti in perfect fusion, you can also call the ultimate state or the consciousness of being. And modern science says, well, consciousness is kind of a coincidence that formed out of matter, because it got together in a funny combination. But the yogis turn that whole picture upside down. And that is very important to understand. The yogis say the very foundation where we come from is consciousness. That's the ground of being. And that's what they call in our tradition Shiva Shakti, or other names, but mainly that, where Shiva and Shakti are in perfect union. It is so important to understand because when you look at this map now, you will go from the top to the bottom or from the bottom to the top in the chakra work. That is what happens. That is the idea and the goal of chakra work in the traditional original understanding, to relive the creational process and to arrive at the very foundation, at the very essence of what you are, pure being. And I'm not sure if I should go through that in detail, but I think it's great to understand at least roughly. So let's start at the very top. That is Shiva and Shakti in perfect union. We would call it also singularity, that which has no other. So it's a oneness. the oneness of beingness. And beingness, another word for it is awareness. So beingness is aware of its own being. That's why we call it consciousness or awareness. So it has those two elements, and when you see the box with the dots underneath, it's Shiva and Shakti. And that would be that beingness, or also called light of consciousness, Shiva, and then the self-reflective awareness, power of reflective self-awareness, Shakti. And there we see it now in a picture as two, but they're not two. They're still one, just they have two aspects of it. That's the very nature of our being. What we are is consciousness that has the ability to know itself. So we have to picture it in two, but they are in perfect union. That's still one. And if you want to break that down, you just say, I am. And the most, to my experience, the most beautiful practice you can do is asking, am I? That's your self-inquiry. Am I? Do I exist? Am I aware? And just with that, that's such a beautiful question. You can meditate like quite for a long time and go very deep into the whole spiritual process. So that's the foundation. And then the yogic philosophy describes those three layers, and we call each layer we call a tattva, means a principle or an element. So the whole yogic worldview in Tantra is made out of 36 tattvas, which are the last 5 ones: earth, water, fire, wind, and space. There would be 5 of them. And what we now looked at would be already number 1 and 2. And then we have those next 3 tattvas, and they're called Sada, Shiva, Ishvara, and Shuddhavidya. And that would be just the willing, or Icha means the will. There is something that wants, that moves, that wants. Otherwise, Shiva and Shakti in perfect union wouldn't do anything. It's just existing as pure beingness, and that's fine, and that's kind of eternal bliss. But there is also the idea of willingness coming in, that something is moving, otherwise there wouldn't move anything. And then jnana, which is knowing of I am this, and kriya, which is acting. This am I. Let's not break it down too much, because that would go too far from chakras. But then you see this nice line which is called Maya, and that's where it gets interesting. Because now consciousness does something. It's still perfect union, and it's still not happening anything. But now through the layer of Maya, it starts to create. And that is the arise of our world, and later of the phenomenal world of our reality. So consciousness, which is completely autonomous and independent and free, the biggest, greatest freedom you can imagine, without any, it's infinite. It says my connection is unstable. Can you follow me? Okay, I hope I'm not too shaky here. Okay, let's go back. So it limits itself. Consciousness in perfect union says, okay, I need to limit myself and my knowledge in time. I create space, and in my vastness. And through that limitation, we create the world how we see it, because it becomes into a separation. Limitation causes separation, and there's suddenly an object that can perceive another one. So there's a knower and a known, something that can perceive a second entity. So we need a separation between in the oneness. It's not really happening. That's why it's called Maya. Maya means it's an illusion, in the sense of actually consciousness is not dividing itself. It's like you having a dream. In your dream, when you eat an ice cream, you don't really eat an ice cream, but you have the full experience of eating an ice cream. Nevertheless, you never ate anything. And so Maya would be causing the whole of creation without being actually real, in a sense of the realness of being. And going down further, we have Purusha and Prakriti, which would mean an I consciousness, like a self-awareness of a separate entity, and Prakriti as nature. And then we break it further down to there is an I maker that's called the ego, and then there's a mind that processes everything. And the mind creates the senses, and the senses create the elements. So complete opposite how science would explain it. Science would say there's something outside and we sense it. Yoga says mind the cat jumps on the piano. Mind creates the senses, and through the senses our outside world is created. All right, so in our chakra work, and that's probably a crucial point to understand, we let me get the cat off the piano 1 second. Okay. Okay, so she is very musical. Every time we sing, she comes. It was Pippi, of course. Okay, where I have been. So yeah, the world is created through the senses. So opposite to our normal logical idea of how we perceive the world. But why is it so important? Because with chakra work, and you will see that later, we work through the chakras and through the elements, the 5 Mahabhutas: fire, earth, water, air, and space. So we work backwards to understand this whole creational process, to get back step by step to knowledge about the highest principle, the foundation of what we are. So it's just another practice to reach what most yogic practices aim for: knowing yourself, knowing your deepest essence. And by connecting with those elements and each step of the process, you get in touch with it, so you learn about it, and you can realize the truth behind it. So that's one major approach how to see chakra work. And in that we come across a plane of reality, we could call it, which is on an energetic level. And we call that maybe subtle energy. And that's something we cannot see, smell, taste, and so on. And that's why it's a little bit difficult for some people who are a little bit more rational in nature to grasp, and then resistance comes up. But chakra work can also help with that, because what you will have, you will gain a experience in the body. And it should be, otherwise the practice is not effective. So the body should always have a resonance with your practice. And so when we go into the practice, which maybe we don't go today, but next session, maybe today, you should feel something. Not necessarily the first time you do it, but if you practice a little bit more continuous, you should feel something. And that's the same with every yoga practice. If you don't feel anything, then it's either not the right practice for you, or not the right time, or you're not doing it right. That could also be the case. But if you continue and you do, you should feel a proof of the practice. So that's in all practices the aim. And when we speak about this subtle energetic realm, it's like Wi-Fi, you cannot touch, see, feel, and so on, but you still have your phone, and you see the device has internet connection, and then you can watch a movie. So on your device, which would be your body, you still feel the effect. So that's important. But on this energy realm, we have to acknowledge that it's a bit more fluid, meaning reality might be a little bit different for everyone, or it can change. So the logical mind not always can grasp it, or the reasoning why things happen or work or not work. So it can work for one person and it cannot work for another person. And that is a matter of the map. So maybe chakra works for you, but not for another person. And still both practice on the same realm, which is the energetic realm. Maybe compare it to quantum physics, where there is no state, no fixed state. So quantum can be at different states at the same time, which for our logical mind is not able to grasp. We either can think something is here or something is not here. But in quantum states, something can be here and not here at the same time. Or it can be both at the same time, or nothing of them at the same time. So there are those 4 states, for example. And that's what I mean with fluid. This energetic realm, which we speak of, and which is chakra work, is more on the fluid level, or if you want, quantum level. And the logical mind not always can make sense of it, so be aware of that. Okay, so when we speak about this realm, we have to mention prana. Prana is that what animates, that's our life force. And we manipulating prana while working with the chakras. So it's wise to understand prana in the first hand. And prana is the primordial force in the whole universe that weaves through the whole universe, that animates everything. So there is basically no place without prana, but prana organizes itself in different structures. So in our body, prana organizes in a structure that lets our body being alive. And we have the ability as humans to manipulate prana and the flow of prana and the organization of prana, and that is very important. And in the yogic anatomy, or subtle anatomy, we could call it, where energetics are mapped out, prana is organized, and it's organized in so-called nadis. And nadis are energetic tubes, or a channel system that distributes prana and organizes prana in our body. And because we work on the energetic level, we want to bring the flow of prana into a balance and into a very specific flow, which is called kundalini. So prana organizes itself, but our mind has an influence, and also how we use our body has an influence how and where prana moves. And in the whole journey of chakra work, we want to manipulate it in a way that it moves exactly at the point where we want, and does activate the kundalini energy, like prana forming into a very specific energy that helps us to awaken the process backwards, the process of creation, which I mentioned in the beginning. So that we at some point in the end, hopefully, arrive at the place of perfect union, the highest principle, Shiva Shakti. Yeah, so from a traditional point of view. I will also go and speak a little bit about the modern point of view of chakra work, but let's start with the traditional view. So understanding the idea of prana being organized in nadis, the energy channels, now where the energy channels cross, you have a little intersection. And this intersection is kind of a point where more prana is present. And you can imagine it like a highway, when you have small streets with few cars, and then a highway, like in America, maybe California. LA is a good example. It's very busy, many cars, and then there's a lot of traffic. So if there's an intersection with a lot of traffic, then there's a center of energy, because it's just more energy, and that's where all the streets go away from. And that's how you can imagine where those energy centers are located. So those roads, nadis, the bigger energy channels, which collect or come together all at one point, creating this so-called chakra, the energy center. And from there, the energy is distributed in different ways. So if the energy center is well organized, of course, energy flows better and much easier into the whole system. And if you have now a few of those centers and they work all together, then of course you can imagine the flow of traffic, of prana, is much more harmonious and better organized. And that's another maybe side goal which we achieve by using and working with the chakras, that our energy is just more balanced in the body, and that affects all layers of what we could call ourselves. So our emotions, thoughts, calmness states, body, health, and the journey, the spiritual journey. So there's a lot of benefit from the perspective of energetic work and of spiritual work by using the chakras. If we look into history, we find out that chakras, most of you are probably familiar with the 7 chakra system, and it got a little bit lost on the path of history that there were more than just one chakra system. So there are actually many. And when we look at the origins, we find that the tantric yogis were the first ones to formulate quite concise and detailed what a chakra is, how a chakra works, and what practices to do with that chakra. And that was around 8th, 9th century after Christ. So that's where the chakras start to be really defined, described in the scriptures. So that's the starting point, because the tantric yogis were very concerned about the energetic world and how to manipulate it in a good way for your spiritual path to realize your essence. And then later on, and that's where the modern chakra system comes in, there was a scripture, one particular scripture that was translated by a British, because the British went to India, and then 100 years ago, a little bit more than 100 years ago, 1918 I think, there was this one person that translated this one chakra scripture. And because it was suddenly available in English, the American people and the British people jumped onto that scripture and spread it wide into the world. And then it got quite popular. So that's why we have the 7 chakra system, but it's actually translated from a scripture from the 1500th or 1600th. So it's not that old. It's quite an developed practice or scripture. So it had already 500 years of refining how to practice it. So it's nothing wrong with it. But it's also already a bit further away from the source or the originals where they came together. And that is important to know, because with that translation, some things changed. And in the last 100 years, also the approach changed quite a bit. And I want to give you now a rough overview about the modern approach and the original approach. So in the modern approach, we mainly see that chakra work is there for the balance of emotional, mental well-being, actually, yes. So you want to fix some real life problems, and that is, I guess, a great thing to do. But fixing in a sense of that you have a more smooth life. So mentally, emotionally, you're just more stable. And you work still on the energetic level, like what you always do when you work with the chakras, but to influence those two. And nothing wrong with that. I think we really need that in many parts of society. But it was not intended originally. The more traditional view of chakra work would be that they are also called laksha, a focal point in the body. So laksha means focal point in the body. And those focal points were used to meditate on or to place certain mantras or deities or elements. And those were to help you on your spiritual path, to reverse the process of creation, maybe remember, and come back to Shiva Shakti. So that got a little bit lost in translation in the modern chakra work. There are still connotations of you want to arise Kundalini, you want to bring it to the top of the head to find the union yoga. It's still there, but I think it's most of the time not practiced in that way anymore, or with that idea. And there's nothing wrong with it. And maybe you want to also walk that way of the spiritual path, if that's your jam, and if there's a gentle longing for in your heart. And then the traditional way of working with the chakras could be also a good approach for you. And I want to explain what they mean when they say installing deities, because that for our Western mind sounds a little bit like strange, woo-woo, or everything in between. Deities. So when we remember back the picture I showed you with Shiva Shakti, Shiva and Shakti would be already two deities. So it's just another word for principle, a principle of the reality. And at some point they were given names so we can speak about them. Yeah, Shiva, consciousness; Shakti, energy, or self-reflective awareness. And then later on, of course, you know, when you speak about them, someone starts to draw pictures of them, and then suddenly they become figures and get personalities, and statues are being built and so on. And for a normal mind, that's like, okay, that's like another person, it's something outside, or a god that sits in the clouds. And that it's really not the primary intention of why they created the idea of a deity. The idea is still just to describe a principle of this reality and to remind you of that. And maybe to embody that again, because you have forgotten that that is a part of you. So installing deities, which is also called nyasa, in your body or into your mental space with a focal point, you know, with chakra work, means you try to get the energy of one principle of this creation back into your memory, into your body, to make use of that, or to alter your experience regarding to that very specific energy. So as you maybe have heard, in Indian mythology, there are like many hundreds, thousands of gods, and they're all very refined aspects of reality. And by chakra work, you could use that with a concentration practice on one point in your body to become complete again. So that is the idea. When you have the whole creational process, you remind yourself of all the different elements of what you are, because you're, of course, the essence of you is Shiva Shakti, the complete union, where nothing is missing, where there's no lack. And we want to get ourselves reminded by inhabiting, by inviting all those energies into our system, layer by layer, we could say, chakra by chakra, on our journey to become complete. And it doesn't mean we are not complete yet. It means we just have forgotten. That's the idea, because there's this layer of Maya. Maya means the illusion. So we have only forgotten what our essence is, and we slowly want to remember and turn back connect back. Yeah, the way back to the source. Yes, and then a big part of that is working with the elements, the 5 elements, Mahabhuta. Because they are describing the final result which we see, our physical phenomenal world. And so what you start with is placing those 5 elements in your body. And that's where the sounds come from, which maybe you have heard when you do some chakra work. Lang, vam, ram, yam, hum. So those chants, which are very popular and considered to be the sounds of the chakras, which is actually not true, it's the sounds of the elements, to bring them back into your system. How that works, we'll go through it in detail. But it's part of that recreation of the cosmos. And in yoga, the body and the human is seen as containing already everything of creation itself. So we are kind of a fractal that that has already everything inside, which the whole universe has or is. You can see that like a seed of a tree. It contains already the whole tree, but not in its evolved form, only the potential. And so a human also has everything inside already, but it's not yet activated or experienced. So yeah, and in short summary, modern chakra work is concerned about emotional, energetic, mental well-being and getting back into balance. And traditional chakra work is more about a tool to install mantras, deities, elements to activate Kundalini and find your path back to source, to your essence. All right, what does chakra mean? Chakra means a wheel of energy. And as a wheel goes, when you imagine there's energy inside and a wheel turns, then it's spread outside. So it would be an organ that manages energy in your body. And when we work with chakras, we work mainly on the level of the energetic body. And I want to quickly go through the layers of the self. That can be, you can watch a video where I explain in detail the 5 layers of the self. Just very roughly, we have the body, we have things around us. We have the body, our own physical body. Then we have our emotions and mind. And then we have the energetic world, like the energy is flowing, creating this, the rest. And energy is flowing in space, empty space. So that is the final layer. And consciousness creates that. Yeah. So consciousness holds all those layers of the self. So Shiva Shakti would that be. So when you look back, that is the deepest layer where we have empty spaciousness. It's not even space and time, it's beyond space and time, it's just emptiness. And in that emptiness, there's the layer of energy. So that would be the most fundamental layers. And when we work with chakras, we want to access, or we want to like dive into that world. And this world, the energetic layer, is kind of the blueprint for all the other layers. So when we have a problem in our physical body, we can either try to heal it on the physical layer, or we can see, is it mentally, emotionally somewhere where we can fix the problem to heal the physical issues, or we go to the energetic issues, and that is a matter of charge. Yeah, so energy potential. And we can affect all the other layers, but also the other way around. So it's a two-way street. You energetic layers can affect the physical and the mental, and the mental and so on can affect the energetics in your body. But if you have a problem and you don't know how to solve it on whichever level, you can go to that energetic level and fix it there, or try to work with it there. So that is the idea of chakra work, that we skip the other layers and first balance or bring our chakras in tune, so that also mentally, emotionally, physically, and so on, the objects in our world will realign by themselves. So that is, on this level, we operate when we work with chakras. So it's a quite fundamental layer and quite impactful layer. But it's a layer which is beyond physical reality, meaning you cannot cut the body open and find a chakra there, obviously. Yeah, it's not something you can see or measure. You can only see and measure the effects of it. So when energy starts to move, body reacts, mind reacts. Yeah, if your energy is well balanced, then your mind should be normally calm, and you should be settled, and there shouldn't be like major problems with your body. If your energy is, yeah, whatever that's called, like scattered, then you will feel the effects in your physical body as well. Yeah, so it's closely connected, but it's not the same. So some people have the idea that the nervous system is the energetics of subtle energy of chakra work. No, the nerves would be the effect of energy running. Yeah, energy runs through my arm, I feel goosebumps. The goosebumps are the physical effects, representation of the energy running. So in that way, we have to understand chakras not as descriptive, meaning they are not really there in a sense, yeah, like as a physical thing. It's more like a map which you can imagine how they look like, how they work, and in that sense, how you like using it as a tool to get somewhere. Okay, you use it as a map. But you would never start, if you have a map and you want to go from A to B, you would never start to walk on the map. That wouldn't make sense. To take the map literal doesn't make any sense. The map is a representation of the real world. So you look at the map, you say and do as the map says, but you walk in real life a path. Yeah, so is the teachings of chakra. It's a map which tells you, imagine a red light in your Muladhara, and that is kind of the description of what you should do in order to activate some actual movement of energy. Yeah, so the imagination is not already the chakra. The chakra is beyond grasping. You cannot actually grasp it. You can only feel the effects of it, which later on come into your experience, into your body and mind. Yeah, just important to understand that we walk in real life and not on the map. Okay. Good. As I said, there are many chakra systems, and I cannot go into all of them, and I don't know all of them. And if you really want to know about it, I can give you a bit of literature. Maybe I do that next time, or I put it in an email. There are very good books like this one, Rainbow Body, History of Western Chakra System, and so on. And it describes basically just which chakra systems appeared when and where, and how they developed. Nothing to read for going to sleep. It's like scholar-like work. And if you're interested in that, you can read there. So what we will focus on is the 7 chakra system, and we will go through the 7 chakras just as an overview today. And next time we will go quite deep into each one of them and how to work with them. Okay. So do I have a picture here? I think no, but we can use here, you see on the left, you see a body and 7 chakras. Okay, so we have, at the very bottom, it's called Muladhara. Well, it's not the best picture because it has no names. Okay, so just as an overview, when you feel into your pelvic floor, please do that. That is the very bottom of your hip. And you squeeze the muscles. That is really much where you have the Muladhara chakra located. How much do we do now? Yeah, let's do the elements, yes. So Muladhara means the base, and the element is earth. So in this picture, you don't see it very well. Wait, I have a better one. Let me share another screen. This one. Getting there. Yeah, here. Here, so you see at the bottom there is a big golden square, and that is the earth element. Then you see another one, which is the water element, a bowl of water. Then you see the triangle, which is fire element. Then you see those David star with spheres around, that's the wind element. And then you see at the top the space element. Let's go to the chakras now. Wind. So here. That is the depiction of Muladhara. Oops. And as you see here, there is a square. And this square in the circle, that is the sign for the earth element. And then you have the sound for the earth element in Sanskrit in the middle. So meaning the earth element has a sound, and that is the sound we want to chant if we want to bring the earth element into the chakra. Just so you know. Yeah. And then you have petals. Here you see 4 petals. And each chakra has different amount of petals. Depends also which chakra system you look at. And that means that each petal stands for 1 nadi, energy channel, coming into the chakra. Meaning you have 4 major energy channels going into the chakra. So basically one big crossing. And they also have each a sound. And the sound would be the sound of a Sanskrit letter. So you can either chant the element which you place into the chakra, but you're free to place the element in any chakra you want. So that would be lung. And lung as element can be really placed also into the heart if you need more stability, the qualities of earth, for example. Just in our modern chakra system, we placed it always in the Muladhara, which makes sense, but doesn't have to. Just so you know, that's not the sound of the chakra, it's the sound of the element. And then you have the sounds of the Sanskrit letters, which are mang, shang, krang, sang. Yeah, so the whole Sanskrit alphabet is mapped on the chakras. And when you look at all petals together, you have 50 petals, meaning all the letters of the Sanskrit alphabet. Another idea would be that the Sanskrit alphabet represents also every aspect of sound, of creation. So chanting, that's another practice you could do, chanting the sounds of the petals, one chakra, the next chakra, the next chakra, the next, and so on, would create also a beautiful practice of activating all the energies in the body. Just one other idea of working with the chakras. The next one is called Svadhisthana. Let me put that on screen again. Here. And that sits, depending on your teaching, that sits at the genitals, or at the sacrum. Yes, sacral chakra. Yeah, I just want to give you a rough overview because we will go through each chakra in detail. Then we have the Manipura chakra, which sits in the navel, behind the navel, yeah, in the center of the center. So you have to imagine a center line in the middle of the body, but also from the side. And then in the center of the center, there's a line, and that's where the chakras are located. In most teachings, in more modern teachings, they are located in the spine, meaning the origin is the spinal vertebra in the center of the vertebra, and then spiraling forwards out and spiraling backwards. In other teachings, the Manipura is a little bit higher. So also here in this picture, it's more like in the center between the navel and the chest. So you would have it somewhere in the solar plexus. It's also called solar plexus Manipura chakra, the third one. Other teachings place it into the navel. So just be aware that it sometimes changes. The fourth one is the Anahata, which is the heart chakra sitting in the center of the chest. Vishuddhi in the center of the throat, and then Agnya, center of the head, yeah, center of center, or point between the eyebrows, often also depicted here. And then Sahasrara, which is then top of the head, crown. So that is the modern 7 chakra system. And as you can see, because it was originated from 5 chakra systems, yeah, the early chakra systems had 3, 4, 5, 6 chakras, and not 7, or sometimes more, 12 and so on. But those ones were mapped 5 because we had 5 elements. That's how you start. And then the 7 chakra system places the 5 elements into the first 5 chakras, and then they run out of elements, so they created Om in the third eye and no sound at the top. So it's just a later development of chakra systems. And what we have to also speak before we dive into the actual chakras is 2 more things, which we will not cover today, but for next time, which is the Kundalini energy and the 3 main channels, which are called Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. You see that also on the picture here, Ida on the left. That must be reversed, this picture. Pingala on the right, and then Sushumna in the center. And the Kundalini, which wants to rise in the center up, the spiritual journey. And we also have to talk about the 3 knots, the Granthis. So that is for next week, if you are wanting to go deeper, where we try to bring together like what is Kundalini, why does it rise, or why should it rise, what does it do, what have the chakras to do with that, and the knots which hold Kundalini in place until they are released. And then normally a major knot of your life opens, so many topics that are stuck for a long time are released as well. So you progress in your journey forward. And then we will go through each chakra. So I imagine we need 2 more sessions to bring the series to completion. Yes, anyway, if you have more questions regarding chakras or specific questions, you can also write me on WhatsApp or an email, and I can include them next time in the talk. I hope so far that was a great introduction for you, and it would be lovely to see you again next Sunday. And also to see some of you soon. I know, for example, that some will come, and I'm looking very much forward. Yes, so to end, not too abruptly, let's make a minute of silence. Please close the eyes down. There was a lot of information coming in, And let that just sit by itself. What wants to stay will stay. What doesn't want to land is allowed to pass. Gently dropping out of the mind that tries to grab everything and relax into a sensation of your body or your breath, which always lives in the present moment. So feel breath and body. And imagine a sound of Om, or like a humming, gentle, soft sound in the heart area that relaxes from there the whole system. With that relaxation, allow the eyes to very gently open without losing that inner calmness or peace. And thank you. Namaste. Maybe see you next time. Have a wonderful Sunday night.